The smell of ammonia always stuck to the back of my throat. It didn't matter how many times I showered or how much lavender oil I rubbed on my wrists. The scent of industrial cleaner was like a second skin. It was 2 a.m. The towering glass building of Hale Corp was silent, except for the hum of the HVAC system and the squeak of my rubber soles on the marble floor. I was invisible here. That's the thing about being a cleaner on the night shift. You become part of the furniture. A ghost. People walk right through you. Miss? Excuse me. I froze, gripping the handle of my cart. I knew that voice. Katrina Hale. The CEO's daughter. She wasn't supposed to be here this late. I turned around, keeping my eyes low. Yes, Miss Hale. Katrina was standing by the elevator, holding a half-empty latte. She was wearing a white coat that probably cost more than my rent for the year. She looked at me, then at the floor, then back at me with a look of pure disgust. You missed a spot, she said, pointing a manicured finger at a microscopic smudge on the floor I had just polished. And honestly, you smell like chemicals. It's lingering in the lobby. Fix it before the morning executives arrive. I don't pay for mediocrity. She didn't pay me at all. The contracting agency did, and they paid peanuts. But I didn't say that. I just nodded. Yes, Miss Hale. I'm sorry. She scoffed, dropping her cup into my trash bag without looking, splashing the cold coffee onto my uniform. Useless, she muttered, stepping into the elevator. The doors closed, sealing her away in her ivory tower. I stood there, coffee dripping down my apron, my hands shaking. Not from fear. From rage. It was a cold, hard knot in my chest that I had been carrying for 5 years. Ever since Alexander. Ever since I lost everything. But rage doesn't pay the bills. Get it together, Evelyn, I whispered to myself. Just get through the night. If you've ever felt like you were screaming underwater and no one could hear you, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. We're about to get into a story about what happens when the invisible woman decides to burn the whole house down. I finished my shift at Hale Corp and headed to my second job. It was off the books, cleaning a private warehouse in the Docks district. Sketchy? Yes. But the pay was cash, and I needed every cent to pay for my mom's medical debts even though she was gone. The warehouse was usually empty. Just crates and dust. But tonight, the air felt different. Heavier. Metallic. I pushed the heavy metal door open. Silence. But not the peaceful kind. The kind of silence that happens after a gunshot. I walked toward the back office, mop bucket in hand. I saw the trail first. Dark drops on the concrete. Oil? No. Too red. My heart hammered against my ribs. Turn around, Evelyn. Walk away. But I didn't. I followed the trail. I found him behind a stack of shipping crates. He was sitting slumped against the metal, one hand pressing a sodden jacket against his side. He was wearing a suit that had been ruined by blood and dirt, but the cut was impeccable. Black hair fell over his eyes. He looked dead. Then he coughed. A wet, jagged sound. I dropped my bucket. The clang echoed like a gong. His head snapped up. Even dying, his eyes were terrifying. Dark, sharp, and utterly predatory. He tried to reach for a gun on the floor, but his hand was shaking too much. Don't, I whispered, holding up my hands. I'm not with them. I didn't know who them was, but it seemed like the right thing to say. He stared at me, his vision clearly blurring. Leave, he rasped. His voice was like gravel. They, coming back. I looked at the wound. It was bad. Gut shot. He was bleeding out. If I left him, he'd be dead in 20 minutes. If I stayed, I might be dead at 10. But I was a cleaner. I knew how to fix messes. And I had a first aid certification from when I thought I was going to be a nurse, back before my life fell apart. Shut up, I said, my voice trembling but firm. I knelt beside him. Move your hand. No, he growled. Do you want to die here behind a crate of knockoff electronics? I snapped. Move your hand. He blinked, surprised by my tone. He moved his hand. It was a jagged entry wound. I ripped the hem of my uniform shirt. It was clean cotton. This is going to hurt like hell. I pressed the cloth into the wound. He groaned, his head falling back, teeth gritted so hard I thought they'd crack. Breathe, I ordered. In. Out. Don't pass out on me. I reached into my cleaning cart. I didn't have medical supplies, but I had duct tape and a clean towel. It was ghetto triage, but it had to work. Who are you? He wheezed, watching me work. Nobody, I said. I'm nobody. Suddenly, the warehouse door creaked open. Footsteps. Heavy boots. Voices speaking Russian. Check the back. The dragon couldn't have gone far. The man in front of me tensed. He tried to move, but I shoved him back down. His eyes went wide with fury, but I pressed a finger to my lips. Quiet. I looked around. There was a gap between the crates and the wall, covered by a tarp. I grabbed him by the lapels. He was heavy, dead weight, but adrenaline is a hell of a drug. I dragged him into the gap and pulled the tarp over us. We were pressed together in the dark. I could smell the blood, the expensive cologne, and the metallic tang of fear. The footsteps got closer. He was breathing too loud. His lungs were rattling. I did the only thing I could think of. I pressed my hand over his mouth and put my lips right next to his ear. Hold your breath, I breathed. He went rigid. His eyes locked on mine in the darkness. We were inches apart. I could feel the heat radiating off him. The boots stopped right on the other side of the crates. Nothing here, a voice grumbled. Just cleaning supplies. He's bleeding. Find him. They stood there for an eternity. My hand was still over his mouth. His heart was beating so hard I could feel it against my chest. He wasn't looking at the tarp. He was looking at me. Intensely. Like he was memorizing the pattern of my iris. Eventually, the footsteps receded. The heavy door slammed shut. I didn't move. Neither did he. Slowly, I took my hand off his mouth. My palm was wet with his sweat and blood. You have a death wish, he whispered. He wasn't angry anymore. He sounded fascinated. I just hate seeing things go to waste, I said, my voice shaking now that the danger was gone. Even bad men. You think I am a bad man? Good men don't get shot in warehouses at 3 a.m., I retorted. He tried to laugh, but it turned into a grimace of pain. Fair point. I checked his makeshift bandage. The bleeding had slowed, but he needed a hospital. I have to go. You need a doctor. Real medical help. There's a private clinic on 4th. They don't ask questions if you have cash. I stood up to leave. He grabbed my wrist. His grip was weak, but his skin was burning hot. Your name, he demanded. Does it matter? To me. Yes. Evelyn, I said. Just Evelyn. He let go. Run, Evelyn. Before they come back. I ran. I didn't look back. I washed the blood off my hands in a McDonald's bathroom 3 blocks away, shaking so hard I couldn't zip my bag. I told myself it was over. I told myself I'd never see him again. I was wrong. 3 days later, I was walking home from the grocery store. A black SUV pulled up to the curb. The windows were tinted so dark they looked like mirrors. 2 men in suits got out. They were huge. They didn't look like the Russians from the warehouse. They looked professional. Miss Wellesley, one of them asked. I don't have any money, I said, clutching my grocery bag. We are not here for your money. Mr. Shin requests your presence. Mr. Shin? I don't know Mr. Shin. The Dragon of Seoul, the man said. He wants to thank you. My stomach dropped. The man from the warehouse. I can't. I have work. It wasn't a request. They ushered me into the car. I didn't fight. You don't fight men like that. The interior smelled like leather and new money. As we drove through the city, watching the streets blur by, I realized I had stepped out of the shadows and into something much, much darker. We arrived at a penthouse that overlooked the entire skyline. The elevator opened directly into the living room. It was minimalist, cold, and expensive. He was standing by the window. He looked different. Stronger. He was wearing a navy blue silk shirt, unbuttoned at the collar, and black slacks. His arm was in a sling, but other than that, he looked like he owned the world. He turned when I entered. Shin Min-seok. The name was whispered in the news in connection with organized crime, port authorities, and disappeared witnesses. Evelyn, he said. He didn't smile. Mr. Shin, I said, hugging my purse. I see you didn't die. Disappointed? Surprised? He walked over to a table and picked up a thick envelope. He held it out to me. Payment, he said. For your silence. And for the triage. I looked at the envelope. It was thick. Probably more money than I made in 2 years. I could pay off the last of Mom's bills. I could move out of my studio. But taking money from the mafia? That made me an employee. That made me happy. I shook my head. No. He paused. It is $50,000. I don't want it. He stepped closer. The air in the room shifted. He smelled like sandalwood and danger. Everyone wants money, Evelyn. Don't insult my intelligence. I saved a life because it was a human being, I said, meeting his eyes. It was hard. His gaze was heavy, like physical weight. If I take your money, it makes it a transaction. I did it because it was right. Not for a tip. He stared at me for a long time. Silence stretched between us. He was searching for a lie, for fear, for greed. He didn't find any. You are a strange woman, he murmured. I'm just a tired woman, Mr. Shin. Can I go now? He lowered the envelope. You are free to go. But know this. The dragon pays his debts. Always. I left. I went back to my small life. Back to the smell of ammonia and the invisibility. But the universe wasn't done kicking me while I was down. A week later, I walked into Hale Corp for my shift. My friend Sharon met me at the lockers. She was crying. Sharon? What happened? She was holding a box of her things. She fired me, Ev. Katrina fired me. What? Why? She said I stole her bracelet. I didn't. You know I didn't. She lost it in the bathroom and blamed the first black face she saw. Sharon wiped her eyes. I have kids, Evelyn. I don't know what I'm going to do. I felt the rage again. Hotter this time. It burned my throat. I marched up to the executive floor. Katrina was in her office, laughing on the phone. Excuse me, I said, walking in. She spun around. You? What are you doing here? Get out. You fired Sharon for no reason. She didn't steal anything. Katrina hung up the phone. She stood up and walked around her desk. She looked me up and down, that same look of revulsion she gave me in the lobby. I don't need a reason, she sneered. I can fire whoever I want. And you know what? You're annoying me too. Your voice is grating. You're fired too. I stood there stunned. You can't. I just did. Get out of my building before I call security and have you dragged out. She leaned in close, her perfume cloying. You are nothing. You are a stain on the floor. Go back to the gutter where you belong. She slammed the door in my face. I walked out of the building. It was raining. I stood on the sidewalk, holding my box of cleaning supplies. Fired. Broke. Invisible. Alexander had destroyed my credit and my reputation. Katrina had taken my livelihood. I was tired of being the victim. I pulled out the business card the bodyguard had slipped into my pocket, just in case. I dialed the number. This is the Shin residence. Tell him it's Evelyn, I said, my voice shaking in the rain. Tell him I'm here to collect the debt. The black car came for me 20 minutes later. When I walked into the penthouse this time, I wasn't hugging my purse. I was soaking wet, shivering and furious. Shin Min-seok was sitting on a leather sofa, reading a tablet. He looked up. He saw the rain on my face, the fire in my eyes. Evelyn, he said softly. You look like you want to kill someone. I might, I said. Does the offer still stand? The money. No, I said. I don't want your money. I want power. He set the tablet down. He stood up and walked toward me. He moved with a grace that was almost hypnotic. Power is heavy, he said. It crushes people who aren't built for it. I've been crushed my whole life, I said. I'm still standing. What do you want, Evelyn? There is a wedding next Saturday. Katrina Hale's brother is getting married. Everyone will be there. The Hales. The elite. The people who treat me like dirt. And? I want to go, I said. But not as a cleaner. Not as a guest. I want to walk in there and make them terrified that they ever look down on me. I want to ruin her. I want armor. Shin Min-seok looked at me. He walked a circle around me, studying me like a sculptor studies a block of marble. You want revenge, he concluded. I want justice. Justice is just revenge with a pretty name, he said. He stopped in front of me. He reached out and tucked a wet lock of hair behind my ear. His fingers grazed my cheek. I flinched, but I didn't pull away. You saved the dragon, he whispered. So the dragon will give you your claws. Deal? I asked. Deal. The next week was hell. It wasn't a makeover montage from a movie. It was boot camp. Shin didn't just buy me clothes. He trained me. Stand up straight, he commanded, pacing the living room. You walk like you are apologizing for existing. Stop it. I'm trying, I snapped, my back aching. Do not try. Look at me. I looked at him. No, he said, stepping closer. Look through me. When you enter a room, you own the space. If someone stares at you, you do not look away first. You make them uncomfortable. He stood inches from me. He was taller, broader. His presence was overwhelming. Look at me, Evelyn. I locked eyes with him. I forced myself not to blink. I thought about Katrina. I thought about Alexander. I channeled every ounce of anger into my gaze. Shin's eyes darkened. He didn't look away either. The air between us crackled. It was suffocating. Sexual tension thick enough to cut with a knife. He wasn't touching me, but my skin felt like it was on fire. Good, he whispered, his voice dropping an octave. Keep that fire. It looks good on you. He stepped back, and I almost collapsed from the release of tension. He brought in specialists. Not just stylists, but people to help me heal. He sent me to a private wellness center for a day, massages, skin treatments, things I had never experienced. He even had a doctor look at an old injury on my shoulder from when Alexander threw me into a wall. State-of-the-art tissue regeneration, the doctor explained, applying a gel. Mr. Shin insists on the best. I realized then that he wasn't just dressing me up. He was fixing the cracks. The night of the wedding arrived. I stood in front of the full-length mirror in the guest room. The dress was a weapon. Deep emerald green silk, floor-length, with a slit up the thigh and a back that plunged dangerously low. It hugged every curve, celebrating my body instead of hiding it. I wore diamonds around my neck, Shin's mother's diamonds, he had told me. She was a warrior too. My hair was styled in loose, glamorous waves. My makeup was sharp, highlighting my eyes. I didn't recognize the woman in the mirror. She looked dangerous. She looked expensive. There was a knock on the door. Enter, I said. My voice didn't shake. Shin walked in. He stopped dead. He was wearing a tuxedo. Not the standard black, but a midnight blue velvet that absorbed the light. It fit him perfectly. He looked like a king. A dark, dangerous king. He stared at me. His gaze traveled from my shoes to my eyes. He didn't say a word. He just exhaled, a long, slow breath. Well? I asked, turning. He walked over to me. He stood behind me, looking at our reflection in the mirror. He looked like the shadow to my light. You are not armor, Evelyn, he said quietly. You are the blade. He held out his arm. Shall we go to war? I took his arm. Let's burn it down. The venue was the Grand Plaza Hotel. Crystal chandeliers, mountains of white roses, and enough champagne to drown a small village. We arrived in a convoy of SUVs. When the valet opened the door, Shin stepped out first. The paparazzi went wild. Mr. Shin. Mr. Shin. He ignored them. He turned and offered me his hand. I took it. I stepped out onto the red carpet. The flashes were blinding. But I remembered his training. Shoulders back. Chin up. Look through them. We walked into the ballroom. The moment we crossed the threshold, the room went quiet. It rippled outward like a wave. I saw them whispering. Who is that? Is that Shin Min-seok? The mob boss. Who is the woman? Is she a model? An actress. We moved through the crowd. Shin was a shark in a tank of goldfish. People parted for him out of pure fear. I saw Katrina. She was holding a flute of champagne, laughing with her sycophants. She turned, hearing the silence. Her eyes landed on me. She frowned. Confusion. Then recognition. Then shock. Her mouth literally fell open. I steered Shin directly toward her. Katrina, I said smoothly. My voice was calm, resonant. Lovely party. She sputtered. You're the cleaner. I'm Evelyn, I corrected. And this is my partner, Mr. Shin. Shin looked at her like she was a bug he wanted to crush. Miss Hale. I hear you have a habit of making messes in your lobby. I hope you treat your guests better than your staff. Katrina turned pale. I didn't know you knew Mr. Shin. There is a lot you don't know, I said. Like how to run a business without stealing from your employees. The people around us were listening. Phones were coming out. Just then, a voice cut through the tension. A voice that made my blood freeze. Evelyn. I turned. Alexander Throne. My ex-fiancé. The man who broke me. He looked the same. Handsome, polished, with that fake charming smile that hid the monster underneath. He was holding a drink, looking at me with a mix of lust and confusion. Well, Alexander said, stepping into our circle. Evelyn Wellesley. Playing dress up. My hands trembled, but Shin's hand on my lower back was a grounding weight. Hello, Alexander, I said. He looked at Shin, sizing him up, then dismissed him. Big mistake. Alexander was arrogant. He thought his old money made him untouchable. Who's the ATM? Alexander laughed, gesturing to Shin. Found yourself a sugar daddy to pay off those debts I left you with? The room gasped. Shin didn't move. He didn't blink. I would choose your next words very carefully. Alexander sneered. He reached out and grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my bruise. Don't pretend you're high society, Evie. I know what you are. You're trash. I threw you out, and you're still trash. Flashbacks hit me. The yelling. The walls are closing in. But I wasn't that girl anymore. Before I could pull away, Shin moved. It was so fast it was a blur. 1 second Alexander was holding me. The next, Shin had seized Alexander's wrist. Crack. The sound of the finger breaking was loud in the silent room. Alexander screamed, dropping to his knees. Shin didn't let go. He twisted the hand, forcing Alexander's face into the carpet. Shin leaned down, his voice low, calm, and absolutely terrifying. Touch her again, Shin whispered, but the microphone on the nearby stage picked it up, projecting his voice across the hall. And I will not break your finger. I will break your life. Security started to rush in, but Shin's men, who had materialized from the crowd, stepped in their way. I looked down at Alexander, whimpering on the floor. I'm not trash, Alexander, I said, my voice ringing out clear. I'm the woman who survived you. I turned to the crowd. I saw the phone recording. Alexander Throne embezzled funds from his own charity to pay for his gambling debts, I announced. And Katrina Hale fires single mothers for sport to cover up her own incompetence. I looked at Katrina. You wanted me to be invisible? Now everyone sees you. Let's go, Shin said. He offered me his arm. We walked out. We didn't run. We walked. The video hit the internet before we even got to the car. Cleaner turns queen, the headlines read. Shin Min-seok defends mystery woman. Hale Corp scandal exposed. In the back of the car, the adrenaline crashed. I started to shake. Shin pulled me into him. He wrapped his arms around me, burying his face in my neck. You were magnificent, he murmured against my skin. For the first time, I let myself cry. Not from sadness, but from relief. But the story doesn't end with a viral video. Monsters don't just go away because you embarrass them. They get angry. Alexander wasn't just a gambler. He had debts. And he had sold information to pay them. Information about Shin. 2 nights later, I was at the foundation office. Shin had helped me set up a nonprofit for women recovering from financial abuse. I was working late. I got a text from Shin. "I'm picking you up. 5 minutes." I walked out the back exit to wait. A van screeched up. I didn't even have time to scream. A bag went over my head. Strong hands grabbed me. I felt a needle in my neck. Darkness. I woke up in a chair. My hands were zip-tied. The room smelled like damp concrete and cigars. Wakey, wakey, princess. Viktor Kozlov. The Russian gang leader. The rival. And sitting in the corner, nursing a bandaged hand and a bruised ego, was Alexander. "I told you she was his weakness," Alexander spat. "He'll give you the port territories for her." Viktor laughed. He walked over to me, holding a knife. "Is she worth that much?" "A cleaner." I was terrified. But I remembered the warehouse. I remembered the training. Don't show fear. Look through them. "He's going to kill you," I said calmly. Viktor stopped. "What?" "Shin," I said. "You took the one thing he told the world was his. Do you think he's going to negotiate?" "He's not coming to trade. He's coming to be exterminated." Viktor hesitated. He looked at the door. "Alexander lied to you," I pressed. "He told you I was leveraged." "I'm not leveraged. I'm the bait for your funeral." "Shut up," Alexander yelled, standing up. "She's lying." I looked at the security camera in the corner. It was a modern system. Shin used AI security for everything. I knew how these systems worked because Shin had explained them to me during our armor talks. I started tapping my foot. Not nervously. Rhythmically. Tap. Tap tap. Tap. SOS. If the audio feed was active, Shin's AI would pick up the pattern. It was a long shot. It was desperate. "We wait," Viktor growled. "Call him." They didn't have to call him. The lights went out. Total darkness. Then, the sound of breaking glass. Gunfire. Short, controlled bursts. Silenced weapons. Pft, pft. Screams. The Russians were firing blindly. I dropped to the floor, rolling under the table. The door flew open. A flashbang grenade rolled in. Bang. Ears ringing. I looked up. Shin Min-seok walked through the smoke. He was wearing tactical gear over his suit. He held a gun in each hand. He wasn't looking at the enemies. He was scanning the floor. "Evelyn," he roared. It was the first time I had ever heard him lose control. "Here." I screamed. Viktor lunged for me, grabbing my hair. "I kill her." Shin didn't hesitate. He didn't negotiate. He fired. A clean shot. Right between Viktor's eyes. Viktor dropped. Alexander scrambled back, terrified. "No. No, wait. Shin walked over to Alexander. He looked down at him with zero emotion. "I told you," Shin said. "I would break your life." He didn't shoot Alexander. He simply nodded to his men who were coming in behind him. "Take him. The police will find him with all the evidence of his embezzlement and Viktor's operation." Shin dropped his guns. He fell to his knees in front of me. He pulled a knife from his boot and cut the zip ties. He grabbed my face, his hands shaking. There was blood on his cheek, not his. "Are you hurt? Did they touch you?" "I'm okay," I sobbed. "I'm okay." He pulled me into a kiss. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, possessed, terrified. It tasted like smoke and survival. We stayed like that on the dirty floor while his men cleared the room. We went to a safe house. A doctor came, private, discreet, to check me over. Just bruises. Shin stood on the balcony, staring at the city. He wouldn't look at me. I walked out to him. "Shin, you have to leave," he said. His voice was cold again. "What?" Tonight proved it. My world is too dangerous. I almost got you killed. I cannot protect you from everything. He gripped the railing. "Take the money. Go to Europe. Be safe." I felt the anger again. The same anger that made me save him in the warehouse. "No," I said. He turned. Evelyn, do not be stupid. I'm not being stupid. I'm being real. You think I was safe before I met you? I was being abused by my ex. I was being starved by my boss. The world is dangerous for a woman like me regardless of whether I'm with a mob boss or a cleaner. I stepped closer to him. I placed my hand on his chest right over his heart. You gave me armor, Shin. But I don't want to take it off. I don't want to go back to being invisible. It will be a war, he warned. Every day. Then we fight, I said. Together. He looked at me. The walls he had built around himself crumbled. He rested his forehead against mine. My queen, he whispered. God help anyone who tries to touch you now. Epilogue. 6 months later. I walked into the gala for the New Beginnings Foundation. My foundation. We funded legal aid and therapy for women in crisis. I wore white this time. Sharp, tailored, powerful. Shin was by my side. The world knew we were together. They whispered that he had gone legit for me. It wasn't entirely true. The shadows were still there, but he used his power differently now. He was the sword, and I was the compass. I walked to the bar. Champagne, please, I said. The waitress turned around. She looked tired. Her uniform was stained. Her eyes were dull. It was Katrina. Hale Corp had collapsed after the scandal. The assets were seized. She had nothing. She saw me. Her hand trembled as she poured the glass. She couldn't meet my eyes. Here you go, ma'am, she whispered. I took the glass. I didn't mock her. I didn't gloat. That was beneath me. Thank you, I said. I turned back to Shin. He was watching me with that intense, possessive pride. Ready to go home, he asked. Not yet, I said, smiling at the crowd, at the life we had built from the ashes. I think I'm just getting started. Shin took my hand, kissing the knuckles. The danger was still there, lurking in the corners. I knew Victor had brothers. I knew the police were always watching. But looking at Shin and feeling the steel in my own spine, I knew one thing for sure. I would never be invisible again. And that is just the beginning of our story. If you made it to the end, drop a crown in the comments for Evelyn. But keep your notifications on. Because Victor's brother just landed in Seoul, and he isn't looking for a negotiation. I'll see you in the next one.